So this question is for these two. This question
I
is
just
for
for
these
this
two.
two.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
I feel like these are a little bit hard. Taylor,
Hey,
hi.
how are you?
Nice to see you.
You too.
You snuck in. I didn't get to see you. How are you?
Oh no.
We'll talk after. We'll do a debrief. Hey, Colin, are we able to get our two? Hey, can they hear us? Can we hear them? Colin, Dakota, and
I can
Steven.
sort of hear him.
You're
Okay.
Taylor, right?
Yes.
I'm Taylor. Nice to meet you.
It is so hard having both of you.
Steven, can you hear us?
Seats because people get
I can hear you,
confused all the
yes.
time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
they did at
loud and proud.
at caucus night.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. That's
Can
exactly
you hear
how I
me as
want
well?
Yeah, we're aware.
Dakota, you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Okay.
There's no way you remember me.
All right. Well, on that note, we are going to begin. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Hello, welcome to your public town hall. We will be hearing from the candidates for Utah State Senate Districts 5, 13, and 14, as well as Utah State House Districts 21 and 34. We did invite House District 40. Unfortunately, neither candidate was able to attend. This town hall is hosted by the 71% Coalition, co-hosted by Black Lives Matter Utah Chapter, Healthcare Workers for Palestine, Green Wave Utah, our local union CWA 7765, the Church of Protest, Healthcare Workers for Palestine, the Nua Collective, Wasatch Assembly, the Women's Caucus for Utah, and the Women's Caucus for the Utah Democratic Party, with refreshments provided by Fawn A at the end. Can we please have a round of applause for our co-sponsors? Okay, a little bit about the 71% Coalition. We are named after a poll done by the Data Poll for Progress published by Zateo. This poll found that 71% of likely Democratic primary voters want the U.S. to restrict or condition military aid to Israel. This trend to the left is not just prevalent in Palestine. Most of us want universal health care, affordable housing, clean water, and air. These are not radical progressive issues, these are human issues. If you want to learn more about the 71%, you can check out our website, 71percentcoalition.org, or pick up one of our zines, which will be available after the event. Regarding this town hall, your moderators will be me, Amani Khader, representing the 71% Coalition, along with Canada, representing the Wasatch Assembly. This town hall is being live streamed on YouTube and will be available there and on our website afterwards. Finally, we have this event planned down to the minute. We have very little wiggle room. We ask that the candidates respect this by abiding by the time, by the time limits when answering, and we ask the audience to respect the candidates and each other by keeping your voices respectful throughout. Snaps to agree, hisses to disagree are perfectly welcome, but let's just keep this thing moving. All right,
Thank
for
you.
snaps of the day. Heck yeah.
Thank you. We will now begin with candidate introductions. Thank you. However, with 5 separate races represented here, we wanted to give the opportunity for the audience to differentiate between you. Therefore, we have done our best to ask guided questions for each district as a starting point for your answer. We will go through the races for state senate, then state house by number. Starting with the Senate District 5 and District 13 and so on. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question and introduce themselves. So we're going to start with Senate District 5. And the first to go will be Dakota. Unlike some other races here, Senate District 5 will be facing a Republican incumbent after the Democratic primary. Considering this, what makes you more competitive than your opponent for this race?
Well, thank you. That's an excellent question. So my name is Dakota Worth. I'm a city council member in Clearfield. I'm actually the only Democrat running outside of Salt Lake County that currently holds elected office. I'm the youngest person to ever win an election in my city. I'm the first ever openly gay person to win an election in Davis County's history. We're going to be asking people to vote for Democrat for the first time in my lifetime. And if we're going to do that, it's going to take trying something new. We're running against an independently wealthy Republican member of the House right now. And this is one of the youngest and one of the most working class districts in the state of Utah. And I am the youngest and working class candidate in this state, in this Senate race. And frankly, I'm also the only candidate that has won an election and knows what it takes to make that happen.
Okay, thank you. Over to CJ.
No introductions? I'm CJ Hernandez, and I'm running for Senate District 5. I was raised in Weber County by a single mom with two sisters, so we know how to stretch a dollar. I then went on to Weber State through Pell Grants and assisted housing support when my children were born. And then I became a diplomat and served our country for 20 years abroad. I was a human rights officer. I worked with refugees, and I have worked in immigration as well. These skills of being able to collaborate and sit across tables with people that do not understand our politics and our country, nor even share a language, can be used at the state Senate. I'm competitive because I can cross generations. I've raised 5 children, ages 18 to 34. I can talk about, I've taken care of my mother through hospice and senior living, and I also know how it feels to be on assistance and also live behind gated communities. I can reach the middle ground that we need to build a coalition to beat Jill Coford. It'll be a tough opponent. I saw her run against Rosemary, a friend of mine, who's endorsed me in this race in District 10. But we know what we're up against. We have built a strong coalition. We have over 50 volunteers. We have tons of support coming into this campaign, and I would appreciate your support and confidence in moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also, just for a note, this section is introductions plus answering the question. All right, so over to Senate District 13. State Senate District 13 will be Nate Bluin's old seat. This seat has become an important touchstone for progressives in the Valley. What makes you more qualified than your opponent to continue to push state politics to the left? And we're starting with Evan.
Thank you so much for that question. So my name is Evan Doan. I'm running for State Senate District 13. As was said, it's currently occupied by Senator Nate Bluin. I have been a longtime advocate up at Utah's Capitol Hill. I've worked for Equality Utah, Planned Parenthood, Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, Crossroads Urban Center, and now I work for an organization called USARA, where I passed a lot of progressive policy up at Utah's Capitol. So we worked on things like Medicaid expansion, where we got access to 100,000 more people on Medicaid. I also worked on things like access to naloxone, which has saved the lives of over 15,000 Utahns now. I've worked on criminal record expungement and criminal justice reform, where people in Utah now have a second chance when they've had a criminal record. So really have a long history personally of passing progressive legislation up there. I would say that there are a lot of good people in this race. You have a hard choice ahead of you. But where I'm a little bit different is, I share a lot of politics with our current state senator, Nate Bluin, but I'm different temperamentally. I plan to work, in the Senate to pass legislation. That's important to me. I think that I need to be more than just a bomb thrower up there. I want to actually make things happen. And so I'm the candidate in this race that has a history of doing that. And I hope that you'll find out more about me as this debate goes on.
Thank you. Over to Taylor.
Yes, hello. My name is Taylor Payton, a candidate for Utah Senate, District 13. So for the past 5 years of my life, I have been a socialist organizer with the Democratic Socialists of America, the Salt Lake chapter. And for the past 2 years, I have been a union organizer with CWA Local 7765. Through my experience in both of these organizations, I have developed a keen awareness of the fact that politics as they are currently, business as usual is not getting the job done. My goal is to recenter mass movement as the force of change in the world and to implement a more democratic approach to even electoral projects such as this one.
Okay, thank you so much. For Senate District 14, we only have one challenger for Senate State District 14, Taylor Caton. You will be running against fellow Democrat incumbent Stephanie Pitcher. Why should constituents vote you rather than someone with an actual record in the legislature?
That's a great question. So my name is Taylor Cater, and first and foremost, I am a proud Palestinian American. So I am happy to be here tonight. So thank you for that. But I would say that it all comes down to priority. I think we all have a lot of skill sets represented in the Democratic Party. There's no question about that. And Senator Pitcher does have a great skill set, as do I. And I think what it comes down to is the prioritization of the district that we represent. So in our district, we have almost a third that are seniors, and we have almost a third that are school-aged children and their parents. And recognizing that both of those groups deserve dignity, and they are not receiving it right now, is critical. And I think that making sure that we are legislating proactively with sponsored bills that actually address the needs of those, like reducing class size, providing money for mental health for the LGBTQ community in high schools in particular. That is not happening, and that has not been proactively sponsored. And that is something that I would like to do. Same for seniors with dignity. We have the highest rate of food insecurity, the third highest rate of senior abuse in the country, and no legislation has been proactively sponsored to address that. And I say it's time to change that. And of course, that would go into affordability in terms of what we can do for both those groups as well. So if you're looking at the difference between the two of us, it really comes down to priorities, and I stand by that. And I feel very confident with the priorities that I think we can affect in terms of change.
Thank you so much. All right, on to Senate House District 21. Sandra Hollins was the first Black representative of the Utah State House of Representatives. State House District 21 has been a beacon for marginalized identities in Utah for years. Whoever wins this seat will have big shoes to fill. Why do you, rather than your opponent, fill those shoes better? And we're going to start with Aaron.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Aaron Wiley. My friends call me Aaron. A little bit about myself.
He's got that energy.
I love the outdoors. Anything that's hiking, biking, camping, skiing, that's what I love to do. I also love traveling and experiencing new places, tasting new foods, going to different museums. The last thing I'm very passionate about is community service. So for the past 17 plus years, I've been coaching baseball, so I apologize ahead of time. I'm gonna head out of here because we got worked the last time we played. So we're not going out like that. But listen, so you asked a really great question. Sandra Hollins has been a beacon, not only for marginalized communities, but for Democrats in general. When I stepped up for this race, I said straight up, like, if I don't have your support, your guidance, your endorsement, your mentorship, I'm not gonna be able to get what we need to get done. So having Sandra's endorsement, having her support, having not only hers, but Ashley Matthews, Rosalba Dominguez, and having a strong connection with all of the Democrats is gonna be critical. But also what's gonna be just as important is individuals who can work with the other side. I am a marginalized individual, if you couldn't tell. May not if you hear me, because I've been working on this for a long time. But if you want to talk about somebody who represents the community, more importantly, and who has an opportunity to break down walls and have conversations, I am your guy. I understand the challenges that are happening within our communities, and not only from a personal standpoint, but also from a nonprofit standpoint. I understand exactly the organizations that we need to bring in, but I also understand that we get a shot and an opportunity to get our piece of the pie on the west side. We don't have an emergency room. People aren't talking about cleaning up the Jordan River. We deal with every challenge that any city has to deal with, and we're still standing up and fighting. So thank you so much for spending some of your time and your energy with me. You can count on me not only to represent District 21, but also every single one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On to Stefan.
Stephen.
Stephen. Oh, sorry, I think it's
I like Stefan. It makes me sound way cooler than I really am. You know, starting out with Sandra, nobody fills those shoes. Sandra did amazing things, including making it so slavery was actually illegal in Utah, and that has made it so prison reform and there's not a workaround to make it so that people who are incarcerated are paid, you know, almost subhuman wages. That's something that she was able to accomplish, and she did that in the face of a very difficult climate. And I don't know if anyone's able to ever fill those shoes. I'm running because I believe that when we underfund public programs, we are oppressing. We are oppressing all communities, but we oppress the marginalized communities even more than any other. You know, one of the things that makes me just angry, really angry, is that within the last couple of months, we saw in Salt Lake City School District, 6 of our 16 social workers lose their jobs. And that's not because we didn't need them. This is happening at a time when our state is growing economically, but that economic growth, it doesn't find its way to the communities that need it the most. These children that are going to do without mental health care are the ones who need it the most. I'm running because if we fail to bring the funding to these public programs, we fail our future. We fail our children. And that is what you can count on me to fight like a cornered tiger to achieve.
Thank you. All right, to Senate House District 34. Senate House District 34 is an open seat. We will have a Democrat in the seat, Aaron Jemison. What makes you more qualified than your opponent, Julie Jackson, for this position?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you all for being here tonight. It really gives me hope and energizes me to see so many folks come out and spend your limited free time with us this evening. So I am Erin Jemison. I'm running for House District 34. That is parts of Holiday, Mill Creek, and Murray. And I believe that I'm the better candidate for this race because we don't just need Democrats in these seats. We need Democrats who actually represent our communities and the needs that we all bring to the table, not theoretical needs that you've read about in the newspaper or heard about in the classroom. We need, I've been a nonprofit and community advocate for my entire career. I've fought for the people who are most impacted by the government's decisions. I've made really historic reforms through my partnership with the people who are actually impacted. I currently work on behalf of domestic violence survivors in shelters, and I'm not just there pretending that I can speak for them. I'm arm in arm with them, and I'm handing them the microphone. And that's how we're able to get real change done in a challenging legislative environment. I know how to do that work. I'm ready to do it as a representative, and I think that I bring that unique perspective, skills, and voice for the real community to that position. So thank you all again for being here.
Thank you all.
All right, we're going to move on to our main topics the coalition wanted to highlight. We did give the candidates a brief overview of some of the things we were going to touch on today. We're encouraging the candidates to avoid emotion-based arguments. We are all progressive here. Instead, we would like to encourage policy suggestions. We want to know what your actual plans are. We are constituents less interested in your feelings on the topic and more interested in what actions that you're going to take about them. This first question is going to be directed towards Aaron, but every single person will have an opportunity to answer. Poorly, the other Aaron. I'm sorry. Good to know. It's good to know. Aaron Wiley will go first. You will each have 1.5 minutes to answer, and then we will move on. So then Aaron Jamison will be the next person to ask, and you will all have 1.5 minutes to answer. Does that make sense? All right. So starting with the Stratus project. Recently, 400,000 acres, hyperscale data center, and energy campus have been approved in Box Elder County. The community did not want this and was completely ignored by local officials. We do not want an energy campus that will consume 3 gigawatts of power, planning to scale to 9, with no local transparency or oversight. For reference, the entire state of Utah uses 4 gigawatts. What actions would you take to protect the people, land, and water of Utah from this gross corporate overreach?
Thank you for that question. This is really interesting. The governor has the discretion to do this. The people who elected those county individuals who supported this, they have the discretion to do this. As individuals, we have the opportunity to put together a referendum. The power's within the people at the end of the day. My number one goal with this AI data center is that we first and foremost protect the Great Salt Lake. We have to put every ounce of energy into saving this Great Salt Lake. And with a very, very aggressive Republican legislature up there, I'll be honest with you, it's going to be very challenging to prevent them from building this. Now, what we can do, though, is we can put in policies to protect the Great Salt Lake, number one, before any decisions get made on being able to build this. So that's my priority, is saving the Great Salt Lake, saving the Jordan River, and identifying ways in how we can protect not only our water systems, but truly being able to be more responsible for the water that we have in place today.
Thank you. I think it's really important to recognize that while any one of us who's elected to our positions will still be in a supermajority Republican legislature, we've watched the power of people coming together and opposing projects that, as Aaron mentioned, really can go forward based on the laws that we have in place. We have a lot more power than we think we do, and I've seen that over and over in my work with the legislature. It often doesn't feel like they're listening, and often doesn't feel like it matters what we're saying to them, but it absolutely can make a difference. And I think the number one thing that we need to do is to not let our foot off the gas. It is way too easy to move on to the next crisis, the next issue. And we're watching how they're going to do that to us. They are now scaling back and saying, oh, we only need this much in water rights. Oh, it's really only going to be this step of building the data center. They're betting on us not paying attention anymore. They're betting on us getting busy with other things, giving us another crisis to respond to. They're taking their direction very well from Mr. Donald Trump. And I think that we need to keep our foot on the gas. And we as legislators, what we can do up there is we can pay attention to every single bill that creates groups and commissions like MIDA. There's a dozen of them, maybe more. They get passed every single year while everybody's asleep at the switch. And you need legislators up there who are telling you about those bills, who are reading the fine print, and who are saying, hey guys, here's another power grab. Don't let them pass this bill, and don't let them forget about you in your opposition to this data center.
Thank you. At the end of the table, we're going to go on to Zoom. So next up is Dakota.
Thank you. Before I answer, I'll just preface this. I have a heart out to get to a budget meeting for the city council, but I very much want to address this question in particular because I see two really strong opportunities in regards to Stratos. As a state senator, I would push for an immediate temporary statewide moratorium on the development of data centers all across Utah until we can address the receding levels of the Great Salt Lake. And then secondarily, we can institute and work towards quasi-governmental board reform, and that pertains to MIDA, the Inland Port Authority, all of these varying agencies that operate without elected representatives. I think there's enough political will to do both things, even in the face of a supermajority legislature. So those are the two hard and fast things that we can enact at the state level through this group of people, and in my race in particular, to get action today.
Thank you. Stefan?
Literally, nobody wants this data center. This is bipartisan hatred that exists. There's not a lot of places where we have bipartisan action. Now, that doesn't mean that Republicans up on the Hill are okay with it, but nobody wants this. I've actually been up and I've visited the three sites where they're talking about putting the Stratos data center. And I think one of the things that we are forgetting is that it is also extremely beautiful land, that we are not looking at the lake like we need to, like it's one of our citizens. We're not looking at the land like it is one of our citizens. We see it as something we can just take. And you know, the interesting thing is MIDA exists because the legislature created it. That means the legislature can get rid of it. We also keep talking about the supermajority like it's a foregone conclusion that that's what we'll be dealing with in January. As soon as I get done with this election, June 23rd, I'm going to other areas, other districts, because it's not competitive after that. It's either Aaron or I. It's not competitive after that. We need to be united as progressives in getting more people out of the legislature who don't care about the lake and don't care about its citizens. That is the answer. We can't be victims any longer. We have to win here. We have to win. There's no other choice.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you. I agree with what some have said. We need to protect our lake. First and foremost, we need to establish laws at the minimum level. The lake will be healthy, which is 4,200 feet above sea level, number one. Number two, MIDA was created during the BRAC, the Base Realignment Commission, that was closing bases, and it was created by the state to help protect things like Hill Air Force Base, which sits in Senate District 5. Is that time over? Are the appointed folks that are there, that are not elected, that are land developers, including the mayor of Clearfield, are they justifiable to stay in that position? Should we just eliminate it? That would be the second question I have. Third, with my contracting experience, I've been a negotiator for over 20 years. Why are we not holding developers to their feet to the fire? Why are we not putting conditions on them that they show how they are going to be environmentally responsible, manage wastewater, reduce heat, and use alternative energy sources rather than natural gas and things that pollute our air? We're not using the power that we have behind the state. And finally, I question why they're coming to Utah, the second or third driest state in the nation, where water is the biggest issue we have. So it's time to stop.
Thank you, Evan.
I've been really inspired to see people of all different political stripes across our state come together in opposition to this. And I was especially inspired to see Iron County commissioners come together and say, issue a moratorium today on developing further data centers down there. So I think that this is both a municipal and a state level issue. I would love to see, like Dakota mentioned, a moratorium at the state level on data center development until we can start to address some of the broader concerns about how they're going to impact our environment, how they're going to impact our lake and the lake level, and then also what's the economic impact, because at the end of the day, these data centers are not going to bring in sufficient jobs to make any of this worth it. They're just going to benefit a bunch of billionaires outside of our state, and it's going to be a disaster for the people of Utah, not only our economy, but our health, our wellness, and just our overall well-being.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, so in the meanwhile, I obviously support a moratorium on the Stratos data center. I believe no one wants it. I believe that one of the things that is kind of going unsaid a little bit is what happens when the next crisis comes, right? The thing we need to understand about AI is that it's being used as a venture by capitalists, as a speculative venture for the big business, right? And this is because we have an economy that doesn't serve people, but rather corporate interests. The only way to reliably stop projects like this is not only at the ballot box, but also to have an organized workers' movement and be organized in political organizations wherein we can actually oppose these things from a mass movement perspective. It takes so much more than, like, you know, we can regulate, but they always like find like ways to like like, you know, move into loopholes and things like this. What it's going to take at the end of the day is things like getting electricians who are willing to go on strike in order to preserve our water for our people, so that we have like a real like position where people are not, like, you know, so that we basically have like a real movement that is ready to meet these forces at every angle that they try to attack us from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Taylor.
Sure. So I, in order to address the policy side of this, right, you want you want a solid policy. So I would advocate a three-pronged approach. Yeah. The first I would say is that when we're holding developers accountable, we need to think about how we are strategically legislating. So one of the ways we can do that is making sure that developers aren't allowed to use theoretical technologies to justify their development. Like, for example, this data center, they keep referencing alum technology, which is theoretical. It's like cold fusion, right? And so if we hold them accountable legally, right, through our laws, that can really help to stop them immediately. I think the other is really reaching out and building coalitions in a state that we've all referenced here are really powerful, like with ranchers. So ranchers abutting the property of where the data center is going is critical because this data center is going to destroy a lot of the grazing land that might be available for them or the terrain that they depend on. And I think the last is really building off of what we can immediately do with referendums like with BEAR. And I'm sure many of you have heard of that. I certainly have signed up for it, and I have also pledged all my resources and volunteer time to help get signatures, even if it's in the middle of this campaign, because I think it's that critical. So I really think those are things that we can do both immediately and long term that can really help to stop that data center.
Thank you.
So now we have a few members that are at their time limit. I think Dakota already left. Aaron, is this a good time for you to step out? We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you have a great game.
Thank you.
Let's have a round of applause. Thank you.
All right. So the next question we have is on the ICE detention center. Boo. As of April 2026, DHS has purchased nearly 47 acres in Salt Lake City with 837,000 square foot warehouse in it. If completed, the facility would hold up to 10,000 detainees, making it the hub and a hub and spoke model of immigration. Would you consider this a priority in your first 100 days? If so, what legislation would you enact to stop this internment camp and any other like it from happening? And we're going to start with Erin Jemison.
Thank you. When I'm walking around my district and talking to voters, the number one thing I heard before the data center happened was about the ICE detention facility. So you guys are hating on the issues that matter. I think I think there's some misperception about the kind of district that I live in, and that folks would not be interested in those kind of radical ideas. But people are absolutely livid about both of those things coming to our state and coming to our community, even though they're not directly in our district. So yes, this would be a priority for me. I was really excited to see legislation that Senator Nate Bluin introduced this past session, and did have a committee hearing in order to pretend that they were actually giving it real consideration around putting some restrictions around ICE and what they're allowed to do in our state. We may not be able to control everything as a federal law enforcement agency, but we can certainly control some of the ways that they're able to behave and the actions that they're able to take in specific locations, which could include a detention facility like this. I'm also really impressed with some of the actions that Mayor Mendenhall has taken in order to affect the utilities that would need to go to this center. I think we need to look at every possible angle for where we do have state and local control, because we absolutely should not be having this detention center in our city. It's not appropriate, it's inhumane, and I think it should be still at the top of people's minds, right up there with the data center. So it would definitely be a priority for me.
Thank you so much. Stephen, we're going to go to you for the next answer.
Fantastic. So in Topaz, in Delta, where they interned 10,000 individuals during World War II, at the museum there, they have a picture of some children in 1942 making the Pledge of Allegiance, Japanese children that in just a few years were going to be interned. The devastating aspect of this is these were children pledging their allegiance to a country that did not show their allegiance back to them. And we need to recognize from the very beginning that this is what is happening. This is a country, this is a federal government that is out of control. It is a federal government, when we look at something like this, that needs to be opposed on every possible level that we can imagine. Some things we could do would be attempting to ban private prisons. We don't have any in Utah right now, but these detention centers are generally run by contractors. So if we can ban private prisons, it would make it much more difficult for them to get the contracts that they need in order to run these. You know, one of the things I found so depressing about comparing where we're at today is, as bad as Topaz was, those 10,000 individuals were detained in a place where they could see sunlight. Now we're talking about putting people in a warehouse, treating them like Amazon packages. And one of the things where we may not have the authority, we can for sure bring in the influence. Governor Cox lied when he talked about the reason why we needed this detention center and why it was okay. We need to hold him accountable.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's hard for you to see the time cards on Zoom.
Oh, yeah, I don't see them at all. I will do better at timing myself.
Time is a slippery stream, so we got to move on. CJ, you're next.
Excellent. As I mentioned before, I've worked in immigration for a couple of decades. I know what the law is, and what's happening with ICE is not following the law, and it's not in compliance with our Constitution. I'm totally against the ICE detention center discussion that we're having here in Salt Lake City for many reasons. If the idea is to deport people who do not have papers, why are we detaining them? And the bottom line is profit, as it was mentioned before. This is greed, this is fear, this is terrorizing our community, and I'm completely against it. I've stood up against the Ogden Holding Center, as they call it, publicly in the Ogden City Council meetings. I support Indivisible's approach up there. What the real issue is immigration reform, and that needs to be done at the federal level. We need to make sure that we get progressives in from our Utah contingency to change that. A swipe of a pen changes somebody's documentation status. And I know because I have loved ones in my family and lots of close friends, and I've dealt with this my whole life. And I say, this is evil.
Thank you, Evan.
So my boyfriend's not a citizen, and so this is personal. I want to be clear about where I stand. So federally, I think that ICE needs to be abolished and ICE agents need to be prosecuted, just period, the end. It's awful. But at the state level, what can we do? So I was really inspired to see Senator Blumen's legislation this last session to put some restrictions around ICE in our state. The problem was it was the wrong sponsor. If we were serious about passing that legislation, he would have handed it off to a sponsor that could have actually passed it rather than holding on to it as a message bill, because message bills disproportionately harm marginalized communities. And so where we had the opportunity to actually make progress, we lost that ability to make progress because someone who was selfish as a sponsor and wanted to make a statement rather than actually make progress to help disproportionately marginalized communities.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Thank you so much.
Shots fired.
That wasn't my intention, but yeah.
They were beautiful shots.
Yeah, they were beautiful shots. I loved them.
Yeah.
Is it Taylor?
Yes.
I can't read.
Yeah, it's Taylor.
It's Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor, it's your turn.
Yeah, so I definitely appreciate the characterization of this detention center as an internment camp. I think it is important that like we kind of like remember the like dark history that Utah has already like had with places like these. And I think that there are certainly like a lot of legislative approaches I would like to take regarding this matter. I would like to see sanctuary spaces expanded so that like ICE is not able to stalk outside of places like, like places of worship, hospitals, schools, things like that. However, I do think that ultimately immigration for years, for decades, has been used as a way to create a second class of citizen in this country. And I think that it is ultimately important that we recognize that like it is used by big business as a way to bifurcate workers and as a way to suppress wages. And that is why is it important that we do be organized so that we have a way in which we can like stand together in solidarity with our undocumented neighbors. And I also support like granting full amnesty to undocumented immigrants.
Thank you so much. Taylor.
So I take two approaches. The first is in education. I think education can be very powerful, and I think if you look at when concentration camps or detention centers, if you want to call them that, when they first started, it was all the way back in the 1800s. They always start with detention and they end with disappearing, and that's terrifying to me. That's happened from Austria to China to Argentina to, of course, what these ICE detention centers represent now. And I'm with Evan. I believe that ICE should be abolished at a federal level for the way that they manage. I've seen what happens to students in public school, elementary school students whose parents have been taken. And I can't tell you more than that because I probably wouldn't keep it together, but it's devastating. I think the other approach really that needs to happen is the way that we determine how we're going to legislate the resources that are available. And I know that, I think Aaron touched on that as well, but if you can legislate most immediately that resources that they need in order to function aren't available for a lot of different reasons, that I think is the most powerful and strategic way to legislate that. I also think it's important, and no one has mentioned this, but to bring forward the predominant religion in the state and bring them into the conversation as people who in the past have supported specifically refugees. I think that could bring a powerful component. So yeah,
good.
thanks.
I just wanted to make a quick note about the detention centers and the term concentration camp. In preparing these questions, I was unsure whether to use the term concentration camp, so I went ahead and I looked up the definition, and guess what? It fits perfectly. So I highly recommend, when talking about this subject, there's no need to soften the language around it because legally it is. There's no legal way around what they're doing. It fits all the boxes. And I think that puts it into perspective for some people. You know what I mean? Anyway, I digress. Let's move on. We are going to move on to the Great Salt Lake. And CJ, this one, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
We have destroyed the Great Salt Lake. And because of this, face a local environmental, economic, and public health catastrophe. What legislation, including timelines, would you enact to reverse this looming fallout?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I've mentioned it before, we need to legalize the level of the lake, the healthy lake. We listen to experts. The reason we're worried about the lake is because the air quality is diminishing, the habitat is diminishing, our snowfall's being affected by it. This is an existential crisis, not only from environmental but economic standpoint. I don't know why more people are not agreeing with this, but it is obvious as the day is long. So first of all, let's legislate that. The second one is to pass meaningful water conservation legislation. We had a few bills passed this last session by Jill Coford, who will be running against, with no teeth in them, 0 teeth. It's like, if you like to, you can return some water. It would be nice if you would play. And we're not going to play, okay? We need to be very focused on expanding the state's water buyback program, incentivizing farmers, not just requesting that they grow lower water crops, alfalfa that we're exporting to Saudi Arabia and China. It's not even for our own consumption. And then we need to fund infrastructure to reduce water waste. We have old pipes. Look, this problem didn't just happen because we had a low snowpack year. We've been diverting water from the Great Salt Lake for the last 180 years since the pioneers came over the mountains. It's time to figure out how to do things different and smarter, and it needs to start now.
Agreed.
Thank you. Evan.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, this demands urgent action right now. It's not an issue that we can kick down the road. And I think, we've heard timelines talked about like by the Olympics. I think this is much more critical that we address it in the next couple of years. And so I'd love us to take drastic action this next legislative session. And I think that the political will is to do that on both sides of the aisle. So I think now's the time. It's not just about water conservation. It's about getting more water to the Great Salt Lake, just on the whole. And so that means providing economic incentives, as CJ was mentioning, but also changing water rights laws so that people can direct their water to the Great Salt Lake without fear of losing their rights down the line. And so it's going to take some creative solutions, but I think that now is the time to act if we're going to save the lake. At the end of the day, I mean, it's going to impact us all.
True.
Thank you. Taylor Payton.
Yeah, I'll start with a more maximalist approach, and then I'll talk about a more legislative one. I believe truly that any business which is found guilty of misusing our natural resources should be subject to being nationalized.
Ooh.
In the meanwhile, I do heavily support the pursuit of pursuing things like a graduated water pricing model, water buyback, like a water leasing program. I think that these are all great steps in between market incentives, which can be used to approach things with the system we have. We are staring down the barrel of a extremely potentially catastrophic climate catastrophe. little redundant. But yeah, these are extremely pressing matters that are important for us to address like yesterday. It is insane to the degree we have dropped the ball as a entire state regarding this matter. We already have an exposed lake bed. We are about to be breathing arsenic.
Thank you, Taylor
Thank
Cater.
you.
Great. So I think the first thing we really need to bring eyes back onto HB 60. I think that's something that a lot of people aren't really aware of right now. And I think it's critical to make sure that we are really pressuring changes to that, or at the very least amendments to that bill, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it prevents rejection of water rights based on essentially considering the public good. So it's something that definitely needs to be changed. I think the other thing that really matters is not just more funding to the Great Salt Lake Commissioner's Office, although that would be really helpful to buy water shares. That is critical. But I also think that if we're looking at building coalitions and partnerships in a state where, of course, we do have a supermajority, it's important that we're looking at how do we optimize things like the Agricultural Optimization Fund, which provides farmers up to 75% to do far better water practices, so like subsurface drip lines, which can save a ton of money. I also would encourage us to build coalitions with ranchers who are using regenerative agriculture. It allows the water to be held in the soil and then it percolates back into the lake at a sustainable rate. It's also profitable, it's good for the lake, and ranchers are all about it. So I think all three of those things could really be helpful in the most immediate legislative session, to be honest with you, for the timeline.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
It's not as fun going at the end because you guys stole all the good answers. But I would just agree in terms of the urgency. I absolutely, frankly, am ashamed of our state that we've let it get to this point.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't control the weather, although we can control what has gotten us to this point of experiencing the weather that we have. But I think it's absolutely urgent at this point. And I think, advocates who are working on Great Salt Lake issues do talk about how this last legislative session was the best so far in terms of advocating for the Great Salt Lake. And yet it was a fair number of message bills and little, I know CJ mentioned it earlier, kind of little carrots or incentives, and I think we need more sticks. I think we're at the point where, okay, we've done that stuff. We've been doing it for years, actually, and now look at where we are. And I think maybe this particular year in the water crisis that we're in might be a good time to really start to say, I'm sorry that you maybe won't be able to have quite as nice of a yard or have quite as nice of what you think of as a new development or state building grounds. But outdoor water use for landscaping is the #1 way that water is used and wasted in the state. And that's just ridiculous. Let's just start there. And we're going to have to use the stick approach, and people aren't going to like it, but we got to make hard decisions if we're going to save the lake.
Kill all colonizer grass. Stefan, you're up next.
One of the biggest challenges I think we're running into right now is there's too much talking about this like we have time. The time is gone. It's not in 2 years, it's not in 1 year. We have a dry summer, and ecologically that could be the end of the lake. I mean, we've seen summers where we had, a week or two of over 100-degree temperatures. We can't survive that this year. We need to start getting water back in the lake now. One of the things that we need to be calling for is a special session. That's how important this is. This is a 911 issue. This is not a plan for next legislative session. We need a session now. Also, this is a bipartisan issue. Everybody sees that the lake is drying out, and we need to prioritize the water going into the lake before anything else. We need to lease as many shares as we possibly can. We've got to bring the water in now. We can't wait any longer.
get the funding to have this facility built. What legislation would you enact to stop initiatives like this from happening? And what alternatives do you have to support our homeless community members?
Thank you so much for that question. And I like that it was directed to me because I'm a person who has previously experienced homelessness myself. I'm a person in long-term recovery from both a mental health and substance use condition. Proud of that. And I've
Yeah,
helped
clap for that.
I've helped thousands of Utahns find their way to recovery. And so I'm particularly proud that this last legislative session, I worked and led a group of coalition partners to kill this homeless detention center before it even became a bill. So yeah, of the things I'm proud of this session, I'm the most proud of that. And so the way that we did that was we made it so politically toxic that they wouldn't even touch it. So I think that we need to continue doing that by humanizing the people that we're talking about. These are our friends and neighbors. They're people like you and me. We need to make sure that people are getting wraparound services, permanent supportive housing, access to recovery housing, access to treatment services, all of those things that we know are the solution to this. Beyond that, I also think that we did a really good job mobilizing Utah's philanthropist community. It was Gail Miller and Lisa Eccles and Christina Huntsman that came together and went to the governor and said, there is no way in heck that let's say hell, sure, I'll say hell. They said heck, that Utah's philanthropists will fund this. And Gail made a big middle finger donation to the road home because she wanted to make it clear that Utah's philanthropists were not going to get behind it. It's because of advocates like myself talking to that group of people to make sure that we did not ever do this. So thank you.
Good job. Taylor?
Yeah, I'm in favor of a lot of similar policies. I believe that public housing is an extremely important one to address, getting people to be able to be safe enough in order to get to a place where they are able to have a more stable position where they can secure jobs. I also believe that it's really important that we recognize that homelessness does exist as a systemic issue. It is part of the capitalist structure. It is used as a way to constantly give you a visceral threat to what will happen if you miss your rental payment, if you don't take maintaining your job seriously. I think that it's extremely important for us to approach things from a position where we can do a ballot initiative with an organized movement to get a Renters' Bill of Rights published. This would help keep people in their homes, and that's my position.
That's wonderful. Thank you for telling us. Taylor?
I think one thing that's critical as we're thinking about the unhoused or the homeless is really what are some of the causes and who are the populations that are really suffering. And especially appreciating everything that Evan mentioned, I think one of the things people don't understand is that when we underfund public schools, we underfund mental health. And that mental health goes for a lot of our LGBTQ community who are an enormous part of our unhoused. And that's because they're not given the support that they deserve or need to have. And so my first pronged approach to that is to provide more funding for mental health for our youth who are struggling and for our youth who need those services to really succeed. The second piece for me is to really start legislating opportunities for cities and school districts to participate. You guys, we have a lot of unused elementary school space. We have a lot of unused public buildings,
Yes,
and
we
those
do.
could be repurposed into housing for families, which make up 35% of the unhoused right now, to facilitate that transition into a better lifestyle. So I would seek those things and legislate that most immediately.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Erin?
I'm going to switch seats. They keep stealing all the answers. So, as Evan said, this wasn't just a warehouse that thankfully didn't get funded. It was a lot of people working behind the scenes to kill this bill before it even came forward. And the organization I work for, the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition, was also part of that coalition that Evan mentioned. And it's another one of my examples where extremely powerful frankly, LDS oriented businesses were behind that proposal and thought that they had it in the bag. They thought it was no big deal and they were going to be able to get this thing built and it was going to make the state money. And at the end of the day, it was going to keep people out of sight, as others have mentioned. And people who supposedly have no power got it stopped. People like Evan and people in my organization and many, many others. And so I want to use that as another example for pushing back. I think Taylor mentioned 35% of our homeless folks are families. Not only are they families, it's increasing. And the number one cause of family homelessness is domestic violence. So that's an area that I work in, obviously. And I think that across the board of all the causes of homelessness, what it needs is funding. And we're all really tired of the state thinking that they know best how to fund services that the organizations on the ground know how to fund. They've never been fully funded. They've never been trusted to do the work that they know how to do. And if we could start to do that and see where we can get, maybe then we can talk about other solutions, which will never be a warehouse in northern Salt Lake County.
Another concentration camp.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen?
I was going to say
I almost said it because legally it okay. Moving on. Stephen, what were your thoughts on all this?
Yes. Underfunding public programs, as I said earlier, is oppression. And underfunding public programs leads to the roots of homelessness. No, I think the very first thing we need to recognize is that we are dealing with human beings. We can't make it a crime to be in crisis. Even in our supposedly liberal leaning city, they're constantly looking at things like making it illegal to have to live in your car. This is the type of thing that we have to recognize the human cost of this. We have to address the roots, which means funding things like we can't have people leave prison and go into homelessness. We can't have people leave foster care and go into homelessness. We can't have people leave abusive situations and go into homelessness. In every one of those circumstances, there should have been a government safety net, but we underfunded it. So it was too thin to catch these individuals. Not to mention the underfunding of public education, which is the largest safety net that we are not securing.
Thank you. Well said. So we are going to move on to a question about housing. It's pretty much tied into this. We
Can
thought
I get 2 cents?
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'll be
CJ.
quick. 'Cause
You
a
can
lot has
take
been-
your full time.
a lot has
Don't
been
let me stop you.
a lot of great ideas and comments have been made on this topic. I just hope to add to them, not to repeat. But again, unsheltered population and homelessness comes like you're trying to pull somebody out of a river that they've been in. How did they get in the river, right? What caused that break? What caused them to fall in? It's either, I mean, we've listed the topics right now. So let's prevent them from falling in the river. You know, low wages, high costs of rent, housing, all of these things. Most people in the state are living 2 paychecks from being on the street. So it's not just the populations that we always think of. It's veterans. It's LGBTQ youth that have been kicked out of their homes, that are living in stairwells. It's women who've been abused, children that are running away of abusive situations. These are societal problems, and we're so focused on the bottom line and getting ahead in capitalism that we're forgetting that we are a community and we make this work together. So quit cutting the taxes which fund our education, right? I live in Ogden, and that's Title I schools up there, and they are trying to accommodate these students who are unsheltered. They're providing showers and lockers for them to keep things in, but it's just not enough. We need to do more. We're in this together.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to do one more question before we take a little bio break. This one is housing, rent versus own. It seems to naturally go from our last subject. And this is going to be for you, Taylor Payton. You'll answer first. Utah faces a severe housing emergency driven by massive population growth, limited inventory, and outdated zoning. With the median home prices hovering around $500,000, roughly 87% of renters are priced out of buying. If elected, what legislation would you champion to address the growing housing crisis?
So, like I briefly touched on in my previous answer regarding homelessness, I'm in full support of a renters' bill of rights. The next big piece of legislation I would be interested in is a the next large piece of legislation I would be interested in is it's not coming to me right now. It would be legalizing the right to rent control. Right now, rent control in the state of Utah is illegal. I would seek to change that. Furthermore, some answers were shared regarding like bringing the philanthropy community together. I believe that it is like a big mistake to put our faith in philanthropists. I believe that it is important for us to organize as a working class, and I believe that if we put our faith in philanthropy, ultimately our fate rests upon the shoulders of noblesse oblige. Furthermore, I think that it's important that we address the concern of house hoarding that a lot of landlords take part in. There are a lot of people that use housing simply as a speculative asset. I believe that this is something that we absolutely must address, and we need to make it so that like the places that we live in are no longer merely like abstract concepts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Taylor Cater.
Sure. So I think one of the things that in exploring this topic with the mayors of both Holiday and Mill Creek and Murray, all represented within our Senate district, is that they would like to see the state give cities greater power when developers come in terms of holding them accountable when they offer up affordable housing. And I think that is legislation that there's actually an appetite for across the aisle, because cities are seeing the effects of developers who are not abiding by the permits they're receiving or what they're promising in terms of their parameters. And all three of those mayors indicated that it would be really nice to be able to hold them accountable when they offer up affordable or middle out housing. In terms of the kind of scale that they claim is affordable, especially just as an example in Mill Creek, affordable could mean something very different than it could mean in another community. And we need to make sure that we're honoring that for everyone.
Thank you. Erin?
Ooh, I'm earlier now. This is
Yes,
very
you are.
exciting. This is how this works. I'm getting
Coming
it.
back around to
I'm
you.
coming back around. So yes, I think in terms of dealing with our housing crisis, obviously we need to look at both home ownership as well as renters' rights and having more affordable rent for folks. I've worked on renters' rights legislation, and one of the most powerful lobbies at our state legislature is the landlord lobby. They constantly claim poverty and talk about how they are mostly mom and pop homeowners who are just trying to rent out their basement. And every time we try to legislate more renters' rights, we're really hurting those folks, and they're going to end up on the street if we don't stop worrying about renters so much. So I think that's something that, again, kind of what Taylor Hayden was saying about, it needs to be the working class who are really showing up at the legislature, because just like with the data center and a lot of issues we've talked about, when the majority of your legislators are land developers and real estate investors and listening to lobbyists from the Landlords Association, we need to be able to figure out how to dismantle some of that and work across the aisle, because I do think as much as that does dominate the legislature, there are folks on both sides of the aisle who want to work on these issues. Yes, I agree with what the mayors were sharing in terms of being able to hold those developers accountable, but that accountability also needs to come with no more state funding. We constantly pump money into investing in supposedly affordable housing, and no one can tell us where it goes. And we never seem to deal with the affordable housing crisis, and every year more money gets put into our state budget. So that transparency and accountability needs to be part of that.
Thank you. And one note I want to say is that landlords can always sell their property.
Right?
Stefan.
I'm not sure that there is any appetite on the local level, even in our cities or on the state level, to protect renters. I believe the only way we protect renters is to let them own the apartment buildings that they live in. Cooperative housing is something that has existed for well over 100 years. Unions used it in order to help workers break free of housing that was owned by the coal mines and things that they worked in. This is a model that works because when you sign a lease in a cooperative, you become an owner. You gain a voting right, and only those that live there are allowed to own in them. Washington, D.C. has had a law that has saved thousands of affordable units by giving renters the first right of refusal anytime a multiplex is sold. So they're given an opportunity to come together, form an association, and buy the apartment complex where they live. HUD has had a program to finance these since 1960. The reason we don't have it is because I don't see an appetite from either our local municipal government that should be looking out for them or on the state level. Let's just let people own where they live and they can protect themselves.
And I can validate that on the local level, municipal level, people do not care about housing or making more affordable housing. It's like really a slog to get people to actually fund deeply affordable, where you can work a part-time job and still afford your life.
Yeah,
CJ.
seriously.
Right.
Or any job. Yeah, literally.
Minute? Okay. Minute 30. Okay, great. There's a lot been said on this. There's some great ideas that were brought up. But bottom line is there is not enough attainable housing in our supply.
Right.
Zero. And the initiatives made by Governor Cox and the legislature have been, we're going to support you with $20,000, but it has to be new construction. Who does that help? Okay, it's not the kids who are looking for houses in Ogden that's already been built out, or Clearfield, or any of these other communities. It has to deal with those that are living on the west side and expanding our footprint. We have houses that could be reused and re-owned by young people. Again, I have children 18 to 34 and getting into housing. Their goal is to have roommates in a leasing facility, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the American dream is slipping through their hands, and it's very frustrating to see mansions being built on the hillside when they can't even rent a room with their friends.
That's right.
It's time to change and look out for our young folks and those that cannot come up with that major down payment. There are many ways to do that. We reform zoning to allow for more infill of housing. For seniors, we freeze their property taxes because some of them are being priced out of their homes that they've lived in for generation because they can't pay the taxes that keep increasing. Also, there's more affordability to go into this policy, but housing is definitely the anchor of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
So I'm currently a renter. I make a decent living, but home ownership has always been just out of reach for me, and a lot of people like me. And in fact, I'd be the only renter in the state Senate right now. It's full of landlords and property developers, and that's the problem, right? We have a housing market that's been bought up by corporate landlords and multinational corporations buying up all the available housing stock. So in addition to renter protections, we also need to work on predatory eviction practices. I would love to put Senator Cullimore out of business. Beyond that, deeply affordable housing has been mentioned, increasing the housing density, putting a tax on non-owner occupied properties. If you're not living in the place that you own, then you're probably profiting off of it, and you need to pay a tax on that.
Yes.
So yeah, all great ideas, and I think that I've heard some great things at this table too. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're so deeply grateful for you all being here. We are going to give everybody an opportunity to walk around, to do a little bio break if you need to. We have 9 minutes, so we're going to be back here at,
Tight ship.
you better know how to count to 9. Let's be back at 6:54.
Wow.
6:54 all. There's bathrooms just this way, and there's also some down the stairs as well.
Well, come over. Yeah. I have a 75-pound dog that will not let you be sad. Oh yeah. Smoke a bowl and hang out. I don't smoke, but you can do whatever. Yeah. You have to go like out on the. That's the right way to do it. Well, no, like we get emails regularly about people complaining about people smoking in their apartments. And listen, I don't give a fuck what you do as long as I don't have to inhale it. Oh my god. But yeah, we do regularly get whatever. Yeah, I'm like, you can just mind your business. Never. Will never happen. Will never ever happen. No. But yeah, so also I'm gonna be laid up for all of July. Are you? Yeah, I'm having surgery in June. Girl. I'll come over with some movies. Okay. Yeah. Hang out. Yeah, I actually started a spreadsheet today because I had a lot of anxiety about I live alone. Yeah. And I'm having my implants taken out. Oh god. Is that as much as getting them in? Do you get what I'm saying? Is that like as much of a thing? Yes and no, because they still peel your muscles off your chest wall, and then they put everything back where it's supposed to go. So they remove a lot of skin, they remove a lot of like stretched out muscle, they remove it. And then like there's drains for a week and there's oh my god. And you don't live with anybody? No. So my friend Liz, who's an RN, is staying with me for like the first day and a half. Yeah. And then I think you've met Lavender and Elliot from just like stuff like this. Probably. They're both part of Utah Jews for Palestine. They're gonna come stay with me for the rest of the weekend. And then the rest of the week, people like my friend Paul. You're just getting your friends to fill in the day. Yeah. When you need somebody, I'll slip in. I'll slip in. Yeah. Like I made a fucking spreadsheet. Hey, get me in that. Get me in that. Jasmine offered food. Yeah. I told her what I was like, listen, after surgery, all I ever want to eat is quesadillas, cinnamon toast. She was like,
short break is up. Oh, it's off. 5 more minutes?
They're still waiting in line for the bathroom.
Oh no. Imani's not gonna be happy. Return to our seats.
Thank you for bringing up like indigenous land practices and
Of
about the
course.
lake. Like we were looking at each other like one candidate mentioned,
No.
either working with indigenous principles
I
or
literally
like
wrote it down. I was
even
like, I'm gonna
acknowledging
mention.
it.
Because I was like, hey, so maybe we wouldn't be in this situation if white people didn't sack the shit out of the land
God.
and do
damn.
unsustainable practices.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like,
So that was
maybe
good, thank
maybe
you.
it's white people's fault.
Maybe it was.
How about that?
Did anybody
How
consider
about,
that?
how
that
about
it
that's
could've-
evidence based, not an opinion? Indigenous people lived here forever, and the lake was still there. Hot mic, dangerous.
Oh my God, let them hear.
Let them hear.
Let them hear.
Witness it.
Okay, so we got 3 more.
So I'm starting out.
Yeah.
But you want to reopen?
No, you can reopen. We should start.
All right. I think there's some stragglers coming in.
That's okay, though.
But that's okay. We're gonna jump right back in. All right. I think we have all the candidates. Amazing. Okay, so the next question is going to be on a living wage, and the first person to take it will be Taylor Cater. The median single person in Utah is making $46,516. That is not enough to buy a house or raise a kid, let alone do both. What steps can local Utah officials take to establish a living wage so our communities can grow and thrive?
Right. So on this one, I'll come. I care about all these issues, but I am a history teacher, and I will tell you in particular, I think it's always important to ask the question, why? And if you look back in the history of this, I will just tell you one simple word: a man named Malthus, who I'm convinced is the incarnate of Satan, offered up this concept in the late 1700s that people are dispensable and that it does not matter how many people die and that the market will take care of them. I am thoroughly opposed to that, and I believe that policy, sound policy we have seen across the nation that actually work like in Washington state, where you can incrementally legislate a living wage, even through a supermajority, to ensure that people can start to have an increased amount of pay. Do I strongly support a living wage of $20 an hour? Of course I do. Do I believe that that's something we can legislate immediately? No, I do not. But I think we can show through incremental increase that it is a benefit to both businesses and the economy to have a more sustainable workforce, as well as to have lower turnover and a better economy. So I would encourage an incremental wage increase for the immediate future.
All right, Erin.
I'm really glad this is the next question because I think it ties so directly into what we were talking about with housing and homelessness. You can't divorce this issue from those issues or many others. I've worked with, I should say I had some conversations with legislators around a minimum wage legislation in this state probably 8 years ago now. And I think we need to push those issues harder. I think there's more appetite there than we realize, especially starting at the very least with the tipped wages and going much higher than that minimum wage currently is. I also think the federal government has majorly failed us on this issue. We absolutely should be tying the federal minimum wage to actual cost of living. And it hasn't moved in so long that the states like Utah that may never quite be able to detach themselves from that federal minimum wage should be forced to increase that based on the federal minimum wage. Last night, I was talking with a voter in my district who's 71 years old. She works at a senior care facility in the Mill Creek community, and she has no idea when retirement can happen. It's nowhere on her horizon because of the wages that she makes and the cost of living here. And she's just made the really difficult decision to leave the state. She can no longer make those ends meet. And I think when we constantly hear the arguments from legislators that if you make us raise our minimum, if make businesses raise their minimum wage, they're just going to shut down and they're going to hire less people. We need to see how these issues are interconnected, and make sure that if people are making more money, point out to them that then they can go to their businesses more frequently.
Thank you.
You should have like a mic cut off.
We thought that'd be rude. Stephen, it is your turn.
Ever since I've been a kid, I've always heard the Chinese are going to be this and this, the Chinese are going to be this and that. And having had an opportunity to go to China, I can tell you they beat us in everything. And it is because they have been growing their middle class while we have been shrinking ours. If we can try and do a minimum wage increase, and we should, it hasn't been increased since 2009, but that would even be insufficient. There is no way to raise wages to a level that will actually meet the housing costs. As government, we have to put our finger on the scale to keep the price of necessities down. Owning the place you live is not to own a commodity. It's not a wealth storage way of growing your wealth. Food needs to come down in price, and governments can do that. Governments can do that by either building housing, by affecting the markets. So it's got to be more of a conversation that is not just about increasing that minimum wage. It has to actually hit affordability, and affordability on every necessity that people need.
Yeah, I definitely support a living wage. I think one of the mechanisms, I'm sure one of my colleagues here will mention, is supporting unions. Collective bargaining is the fastest way and the most effective way to increase wages and benefits for workers. And a living wage is not anti-business. It's pro-worker, it's pro-family, it's pro-economy. And when people earn enough to cover the basics, they spend money locally, and they rely less on public assistance and build stronger communities. This is the essence of the argument. I not only support living wage. Right now, as mentioned, Utah's still at $7.25, where our neighbors, Colorado is at 15, Arizona's at 15, Nevada's at 12, and New Mexico's at 12. But in reality, nobody's working for less than $15 to $20. So why don't we just formalize that? Also, this is an affordability package. So you're looking at affordable housing, taking food tax away. We have 3% the state could do tomorrow, which will help reduce everybody's grocery bills, which are becoming luxuries. Child care. Look at our neighbors in New Mexico. They're making it universal. How does New Mexico do that? Let's figure it out and do it right here. This is an affordability package. Wages is one of those, and to be honest, we are supplementing those wages right now with all the turnaround tip suggestions that we get with people who are even making hourly wages. That's a slave type economy, and we need to change that now.
Thank you, Evan.
CJ, you stole the words right out of my mouth. I mean, we have a minimum wage in this country because of the historic work of labor unions. And so we need to work on empowering and restoring the rights of labor unions in our state to organize. So that means attacking the right to work laws that we have in the state of Utah. It means supporting collective bargaining, both in the public and private sector unions. And it also means running legislation to allow prevailing wage kinds of efforts in union negotiations. And so I think that really lifting up our labor unions is key to restoring a living wage here in the state of Utah.
Thank you. Taylor?
First of all, I'd like to shout out, you mentioned Malthus. That was amazing. I did not think we were going to see that today. CJ is absolutely right. I'm going to talk about unions here. Legislative solutions to the living wage tend to come as a reaction to pressure. That pressure comes from a working class that is able to recognize itself as united and as having like one purpose. This is also why I do not believe in such a thing as the middle class. I believe there are two classes, the working class and the owning class.
Yes.
Furthermore, I believe that we not only need unions, there are unions that are business unions and reactionary in nature. We need fighting unions. We need unions who are politically motivated.
Well said.
That's all.
Well said. I have a random fact. That's cool. Does anybody know when tipping culture came to the U.S.?
This is a good fun fact.
CJ.
It was following after slavery was abolished.
And they were like,
And they were like, you need to earn your worth, so we'll tip you if we think that your service is good enough. And we continue. I was a server for 5 years
yeah,
as I was going through college. And I know exactly how that feels to not make a check and just bend over, always good service.
yeah,
But still, that's where it originated.
yeah. When Black people entered the workforce, they wanted a way to control their wages as much as possible. So they brought over tipping
Classic.
culture from Europe, which had never been in the United States before. Isn't that cool? Isn't that so interesting? Okay, we're gonna move on.
On that fun
Steven,
note.
don't worry, I'll have more. Steven, this one's for you. We want to talk a little bit about campaign finance reform. In Utah, there are very little guidelines when it comes to actual limits on campaign contributions. If you are elected, what legislation with what limits would you consider to reform our extremely broken system?
There we go, unmuted. There's a big gap in our campaign reporting. And one of the biggest gaps that we have right now is that when we run, we talk a lot about where the big donations come from. We talk about donations coming from other people. We don't allow campaigns that have small dollar donations or someone who wants to sell tamales or those types of things, really a route in which they can raise finances in that way. So there's a supply side that is a problem. There is also a problem in that there is no cap, at least in my race, there is no cap in the amount of money that can come in. And when you use a PAC, it creates all kinds of dark money. Honestly, if we really want to get finances out of politics, we need to cap the entire election, not just the amount that individual donors can bring in, but this is how much an election can cost. And we need to create public forums where people have a place to go where they can get their ideas across without having to pay for every ounce of real estate where they try and get their ideas out there. More public forums, a cap on the cost of the election that is reasonable. Those are things that would make a real difference.
In the state legislature. Oh, I'm so sorry. Never mind.
Go ahead. Go ahead. We're all in this together.
So Hawaii passed legislation that actually I'm gonna let you, since you know about it, I'll let you.
Well, I hope I'm going to say it right now. You're an expert.
Okay, but basically Hawaii passed this legislation that it went around Citizens United in a very clever way, and it's something that Utah legislature could do as well. But I'll pass to Evan. Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of public financing of elections. I can tell you as a candidate, I spend a disproportionate amount of my time on fundraising when I'd rather be talking to voters, just straight up the end. So I would like to see us to do the New York model. I'm a big fan of that. So if you don't know, the New York model The public financing will match small dollar donations, and so that kind of gives you so it gives you some additional bang for your buck with those small dollar donations, and it keeps the big moneyed interests out of politics. We just need less of that, and so.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
I got. Okay. Evan is right to talk about the New York model. I support any step in the regulation of campaign finance. However, I also think it's important that we recognize that our politics were not pure and then became corrupted. They were designed from the ground up as this like system of patronage. That is why I do so much work through Salt Lake Democratic Socialists of America, wherein we build an actual democratic approach to political organizing, wherein every person has an equal say. Anyone is allowed to bring a resolution to the floor, and we engage in our issues in a it's loud and ugly, but a very democratic way. We have very loud disagreements, and that is the kind of energy that I seek to bring to all politics, is getting everyone back into the conversation. I could ask you for $1 billion right now, to Steven's point about how there's no limit on what you're allowed to donate for a state race. You can literally ask for anything.
From
It's-
outside the state too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And anybody from anywhere can give you however much they want.
Yeah. Anybody.
Anyone.
Anybody.
Anybody.
Certain people come to mind.
All right, thank you, Taylor.
So I'll echo Evan's point that I think the small dollar public matching funds that New York put in place in 1988 is really a fantastic way to try and support new candidates. Having spent over a decade now working with the youth, at least in my own Senate district, as a teacher and then a principal, they have so much to offer when they graduate. They're so knowledgeable, and they're just remarkable people. And many of them don't have the resources necessary to take that and run with it, pun intended, for office. And I do think those small dollar public donations can be really critical. I also think it's important that both Democrats and Republicans recognize the ways that they cause inequity when they accept those large donations or when they accept special interest money, which is something that we need to come to terms with.
Thank you.
Aaron, sorry for stealing your thunder.
No, it's okay. We're all,
gonna do better
it takes
anyways.
ideas from everyone. I actually didn't know about the Hawaii law until also last night when I was talking to someone at their door, who told me about it. This is my number one issue. I believe that the reason that we are in the position we're in today is Citizens United. CJ stole that thunder from me, and and frankly, the failure of the Democratic Party to talk about campaign finance reform anymore. I would have given my right and left arm and leg to not have to run under any political party. It is an incredibly broken system. I think we absolutely should have fully publicly funded campaigns. They are not allowed to start until a certain point of time. You can only spend a certain amount. It is all publicly funded. The amounts are graduated based on the size of the election, because I am someone who has a full-time job. I don't have children. I have a supportive spouse, and I'm still drowning trying to do this campaign because of fundraising, because of everything that we have to do on top of that. You know, the folks up here, if you elect us, you know we've worked for it, because I've never experienced anything like this. And I'm someone who has resources and has the privilege of having supportive folks around me and a supportive boss when it comes to my job. Regular people are meant to be kept out of this process. And that is what campaign finance, the degradation of those laws has created.
Very important.
Absolutely. So, because we've been so mean to you, Aaron, we're actually going to let you start again on this
now I'm
question.
nervous.
So this is on SB 186 in 2021 and SB 97 in 2023. SB 186 and SB 97, which expands it, prevent entities that contract with the state of Utah from boycotting Israel. Now that you are aware of this legislation, what would you work to repeal it?
Yeah. Would I work to repeal it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's
How would you?
How would I work to repeal it?
Well,
Thank you.
I guess would and how.
Yeah. Yes. And I think the very existence of the 71% coalition speaks to the fact that, again, I'm sorry, I'm a broken record on this, but I truly believe the people in this state are behind changing the way that we approach some of these issues. And I think it was, culturally cool for a while to pass legislation like that. And I know that was pretty recent that it passed and then was expanded, but a lot has happened since 2023. And I think this is the time to push back on our legislature, really limiting any kind of free speech, and no matter what we're talking about, but especially when we're seeing not just what I would call conflict, but genocide happening in parts of the world. And it's not just when we're talking specifically about Israel, it's happening in other countries as well. And our state should not be trying to control what people say and the way that they behave through state legislation, period.
Great answer. Steven.
Yeah, on the very first day of the legislative session this year, I was actually with the 71% coalition, and we were in the basement of the Capitol reading the names of children who had been murdered in Gaza. And it's disgusting that our state wants to place its finger on the scale to aid Israel in committing a genocide. This is unconstitutional. The law itself is illegal on so many fronts, mostly the freedom of speech that we have. But one of the things I really hate about this is the only way you can prove that you don't boycott somebody is by buying from them. This wasn't just we don't want someone buying these things. It was actually a way to force money to go to pro-Israel organizations. We have to put this in the light of day. We have to make sure that this is seen for what it is. People will stand up for their First Amendment rights. We have to give them an opportunity to. And it also means that we also have to fight to win more seats back in this legislature. We have to punish them. We have to make sure that there is not an opportunity for this type of thing to ever pass in the future.
Thank you so much. CJ?
Excellent. Leaning on my experience as a contracting officer for over 2 decades, my position is very simple. Utah's contracting laws should be based on whether someone can do the job honestly and effectively and deliver the best value for the taxpayer dollar, not whether they pass the political litmus test. I will support repealing and revising these bills to protect constitutional rights and ensure that Utah does not use public dollars to suppress lawful dissent.
Yes.
We have a right. People should be able to advocate for Palestinian human rights.
Yes.
Criticize the actions of our own government and that of Israel,
Yes, ma'am.
and participate in lawful boycott without being punished by the state of Utah. This is not anti-Semitism. Believe me, I've reported on that. This is free speech, which we stand for in our First Amendment. We can and must oppose anti-Semitism wherever it appears. Likewise, we should not use that concern to silence legitimate advocacy for Palestinian freedom, dignity, equal rights, and the right to live. Thank you.
Well said. Evan?
So I'm going to go off on a little tangent, but so my work at USARA, I see us as doing recovery advocacy work. I see it as fundamentally an issue of social justice. And so I say that because I think that all social justice has to be intersectional. And for me, as an organization that contracts with the state to get some grant funds, I noticed in one of our grant applications that it restricted our voice around Israel. I'd love to say as a USARA employee that Netanyahu's a war criminal. I can't, but I can say that as a private citizen. I would also love it to see us attack HB 261, which was passed a few years ago,
Yes.
which also restricts my ability to talk about DEI in my space. I cannot do that as a nonprofit right now, and it's really impacting my ability to do the work to actually address the intersectional reasons behind substance use and mental health crisis that we see in the United States. So I would love to see us tackle, just like CJ was saying, giving us all that voice back, because we cannot do this work in silos and we cannot do it where our hands are tied behind our back.
Thank you so much. Well said. Taylor?
Why are they scared? Is my mic on?
Is it?
Is it?
Is it?
Is it now? It's definitely on
Yay.
now. Why are they scared about us criticizing Israel? The answer is very simple. Israel is a settler colonial project that seeks to repeat the same cataclysmic program of ethnic cleansing that founded America.
Goes hard.
They seek to redo to the Palestinians what we did to indigenous people here centuries ago. That is why they are scared. Furthermore, boycotts in a capitalist society are one of the most powerful material forms of freedom of speech you can express. That is why they want to limit it, because it directly hits people in their wallets. It affects the project that significantly that they feel like they can take it away from us. And that is why it is so important that I will oppose any attempt to limit our rights in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Taylor, bring us home.
I will. So I will say this, and I want to be clear. So I am the only Palestinian American on this panel. And I will tell you first and foremost, to be honest, I do not feel safe answering this question in its entirety because I have 3 young children at home. And I do not trust what people will do with my response. So
Talk
I want to
about
be
it.
clear about that those kids are my first priority when I answer this. The second that I will ask, though, is there are a lot of tools available when these kinds of challenges surface. And I would ask whoever feels the way that they feel about this, because this was a feel piece of legislation, what tools are available? What tools do we get to use? And that's where I'll leave it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And one note for me, I'm also Palestinian quarter on my grandfather's side. And, you know, I remember talking about Palestine years ago. And it's gotten better, but it's still scary. And there are still consequences, as there always are, with speaking out. So thank you all for doing that.
Thank you. As another Palestinian, not on that panel.
Palestinian,
over here.
Palestinian panel.
I just meant
We're
this panel.
everywhere. We're out here. These kinds of legislation is a slippery slope. This is what they want to. This is the kind of speech that they want to tap down on now, right? What's the next thing? What's the next thing that you're not going to be able to use your money to vote against? Because I guarantee you this is just setting them up for another way for them to, capitalize on this capitalistic system that we all have, right? Money is power. If we can't vote with our money, if we can't vote with our votes, then where are we really in this democracy, quote unquote? Okay, so now we have opportunity for audience questions. We have about 15 minutes. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like? Great. We're going to have, if you come down, we're going to have hopefully a mic on each side here for you so you can line up, and we will get through as many as we possibly can.
Sorry.
What time is it?
I
1
love
minute
all
response.
of the energy about Palestine. Are we also willing to talk about Lebanon? Because there is currently a genocide happening there right now.
Very good question. We'll start with CJ and then work our way down the line.
Lebanon's pretty close to my heart. I worked with the Consul General when I was in Los Angeles with Concert Corps there and learned much more about it. It was such a peaceful place. The people, friends of mine, have served there back in the day before the current challenges that they have, and the bombing that's going on there is unbelievable. I think we need to stand firm on Lebanon is a complex beast, but there are so many allies and opportunities to reach out and support them. But again, you'll hear the rhetoric of this is Iranian terrorists and we're trying to, get Hamas out, etc. But they're sidestepping human rights issues and not protecting the civilian population, just like we see in Palestine. It's just another example of letting partners go wild.
Thank you.
I mean, there's no shortages of like genocides happening in the world right now. Because I also think about what's happening in Congo, right? So there's really things that we have to address. We cannot lose sight of one issue because of another. So, I mean, I have plenty of time in my day to work on these things, right? And so, like, I think that we all need to do everything we possibly can. It's an all hands on decks kind of situation, and so we all need to be working together to address not just the one issue, not just Palestine, not just Lebanon, but all of the injustices we see around the world.
You're right to call out Lebanon and to point out that there are other conflicts besides Palestine. I think it's important that we oppose all forms of inter-imperialist conflict. I think that it is important that we recognize that a lot of what happens in Lebanon is part and parcel to what's happening in Palestine, is part and parcel to what's happening in Iran right now, is part and parcel to what we did in Venezuela.
Yes.
This is because we live in an imperialist system that does not believe that it has to obey any form of international law. It does not believe that it can be cowed or that it has to answer for anything that it does on a global stage. So yes, of course, I oppose any bombings happening in Lebanon. I oppose any bombings happening in the Congo. I oppose any bombings happening in Lebanon. Yeah, of course. You're right to ask. Thank you.
Great.
So I think in terms of Lebanon, very similar that everyone deserves human dignity. And I think deciding how we're going to achieve that, whether we feel under threat or not, is what makes us a civilization or not. And I think that probably answers how we've decided to act. So,
Aaron?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the comments that have been made, and I do appreciate the question and pointing out the other areas where genocide is happening. And I think one of the things we need to do is, we all agree, I think, not everyone's gone yet, but I think we all agree that people should not be being killed. And I fully agree with what Taylor just said, that wouldn't it be a different story if it was happening in our backyard, but we never have to deal with that because we get to always be in charge. And I think we have to start with where the money's going. I think that's where we have the most control, is where is our money going. And I think that we should demand of our leaders transparency around that, and that we shouldn't be funding genocide, period.
Yeah. Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, I think I'm glad that Lebanon is being brought up, because yes, we can say the genocide happens in a lot of other places, but this is the genocide that we are committing. And when I say we are committing, this is part of the Iran war. We may not be the ones who are sending those bombs, but those are our bombs, and they're part of the coordinated effort that we have there in Iran. So, and let's not forget, we bombed a school. We bombed a school as well. That it is horrible that genocide happens anywhere, but when we as a country are the perpetrators of it, or one of the perpetrators of it, it makes it so much worse. And that is why all politicians at all levels have to be held accountable for whatever they could have done to prevent this, or to slow this, to stop this from happening in the future. Yeah, underfunding public programs is oppression, and transit and the inability to move around because you lack the means to have a vehicle is another way that we oppress an entire group of individuals. There is nothing but good that would come from actually funding these programs the way they need to be.
it benefits everyone. It benefits our air. It benefits, there is no reason that we should not be pouring tremendous amount of funds into public transportation. The Rio Grande Plan is a no-brainer. It gives us land that we could build housing on. It makes transitions safer between east and west, even for emergency vehicles and things like that. It is one of those things that gets so frustrating when there's such a good plan and there's just doesn't seem to be the fortitude from politicians to make it happen. This is our time.
Questions given to you in advance to be able to do research. Anyone up here who's telling you we didn't do research on all the topics that we were given is a liar. We do not know all of the things about all the things. I would love to hear more about the Rio Grande Plan. I think one of the things that we need, our public transit system needs to be cheaper and faster, and that requires the public funding piece, as others have said. I think it's really important to recognize that as our legislature continues to pass small little bills, again, trying to incentivize and give carrots to transit-oriented housing development in the state, it's time for some sticks. The developers have got to fund more transit options around these areas if we're going to really be able to address those interrelated issues of jobs, people being able to get to their jobs. Another person I talked to last night, sorry I'm a broken record on this too, but guess what? Our job is to represent people. She needs transit. The end. That's what she told me.
Yeah, and just a note, if people don't know what the Rio Grande Plan is, something I love. It's basically burying the tracks that divide east and west in a train box that goes, is it 700? It's like,
I believe it's around the deep. If it's around the depot, it's probably about where the I-15 off ramp is
Yeah, I
on West
forget what the
Temple
street
to like
is.
maybe 6 North.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
but it's on the street the Rio Grande's on. It would be burying the tracks and making that a hub for transit. And then it would open up all of the real estate where the railroad tracks are for development. But
Cool.
So the way that I would go after something like that is I would start with actually an infrastructure bank. I think that would be really powerful for cities. It's very anemic in the state of Utah right now, but cities could draw from that in order to not only support the existing infrastructure needs, especially the community I'm in, not just to build those roads, but it would come with the need to invest in public transportation as part of accessing that infrastructure fund. I also think that it would be critical as part of that development legislation I talked about before with developers, that as they're developing and part of that teeth, that accountability is making sure, as mentioned before, that we're actually asking them to provide for that public transportation.
Great. Taylor?
Yeah, I support any like furtherance of a mass transit network that allows working people to get to their places of work in like a punctual manner. I myself have relied upon UTA for years to get to my job. I do believe it's also important that we recognize that there are ways in which certain mass transit is also used to kind of like hike up the prices of apartments in some cases. I live next to the S line. They are currently working to expand it, and one of the things that they are doing on that front is it's basically like useless as like a transit system, and really all it does is hike up apartment things. That being said, I think the Rio Grande Plan is great, and I think that also it's important that that we realize that UTA is it's been 6 months without a contract with the ATU, and I think that sorry.
That's okay. You can finish your thought.
Yeah, it's been 6 months since UTA has been able to come to a collective bargaining agreement with ATU, and that has to end. That is not negotiating in good faith.
Yeah. Thank you. That's an important point. Thank you. Evan?
Yep. I think that increasing housing density and adding a more mass transit options are both environmental justice issues and social justice issues because it really impacts people, disproportionately impacted communities more than others, right? Fred, you're looking different these days, but I'm glad that, that you're carrying the torch for him because he I've talked to Fred for hours and hours about the Rio Grande plan, and he has been a phenomenal advocate for this. And so I'm glad that someone's picking up where he left off. I would be willing to carry the bill to do the study to open up the idea of the Rio Grande plan by the Olympics.
Ooh, I love that.
Evan. All right. CJ, good luck topping that.
Yeah, that was great. I just want to say again, I've lived in a lot of places, and I've lived in 6 countries where I didn't own a car
Wow.
because you could get around that easy, and that local transportation was accessible. A couple years ago, we had OGX, as we call it, put in Ogden, which takes you from the Front Runner all the way through downtown up 25th Street in Ogden, all the way over to the hospital in Weber State, and is wonderful. Because of the forethought of our city leader at the time, we were able to get grants to keep it free. And you know what? It's ridden every single day. I've ridden it myself. Why don't we do more of this? In District 5, I want to expand this into communities like Clearfield. And not only is it more environmentally savvy, it reduces your cost of living if you don't have to pay for car insurance. We need to get away from this frontierism mentality that we have here in Utah. We don't live on the edge, and we can actually sit on a bus with another human being and live through it. It's great.
Wonderful. I think we have time for one more audience question. I'm sorry. I see you there. I acknowledge you. Come ask me your question after. We'll chat. But we got time for one more audience question, and then we'll have to close out.
Hi, thank you. I don't know how behind I am on the times here because I remember hearing about it as long as 2 years ago, but Smith Entertainment Group is leading the cause to revitalize downtown Salt Lake City. Understanding that this is led by a shockingly small number of stakeholders, what's your plan from curbing an increasingly gentrified Salt Lake City from becoming a billionaire's playground?
Very good question. Christina or CJ, I'm sorry. Let's start with you.
We've seen this in a lot of places. My last post was in Los Angeles, and when they built the SoFi Stadium, which houses the Rams, all the properties around there just went sky high, and basically people had to move out of the Compton and the areas that they grew up in Irving. So you can definitely see that happening here. How do you stop that? Good question. I think you need to start working on housing solutions that allow people to live affordably. But progress is coming. The legislature has bid on these things. I think what we can do is just help people to make life more affordable.
Thank you.
We can't let billionaires control our future. But what I think is even more insulting than that is that we're also giving them tax breaks and tax incentives on top of that, which is disgusting, right? Like, so an end to that for sure. But like, I mean, I think that part of any Democrat's job in the Utah legislature is also to hold kind of a, just a light to what's happening up there, right? And bringing attention to the issues that most people sweep under the rug. And so really be doing our job is to help amplify that these are not good things for the people of Utah, and that they're being controlled by a small group of billionaires that don't have our interests in mind.
Yeah, you stole the words right out of my mouth as far as like opposing like tax breaks. I think that is the one true like legislative approach that we can take. I believe that there's also a very big necessity to take a municipal approach to this. I think that better zoning laws would help, and it's very important that we oppose like any like method by which the billionaires seek to take over our city out from under us. We see a lot of these things going on in San Francisco, and we need to take similar measures to the ones that a lot of like leftist organizations are taking in San Francisco in order to oppose these. Yeah, great question.
Thank you. Taylor?
So I'll take a historical approach. No surprise. So I think the British actually do a great job of this in their local high streets. My wife's family's British, so we go there quite a bit. And what they do is they make sure that those homes on that high street are constantly certified as historic. and that prevents many of the kinds of development that we see here over there. And I think that has been deployed with Abravanel Hall, to answer your question, right? That was a fantastic strategic, I think, piece of work there. And I'd like to continue doing that with the historical buildings, of which we have a lot downtown. So that's the first way that I would most immediately approach that, is making sure that we're protecting those buildings and classifying them properly. And then we can talk about the rest later.
Thank you. Erin?
That's really interesting. I'd love to hear more about that. I think this really connects to one of the issues we already talked about when it comes to the homeless camp or concentration camp detention center. In that the people who were pushing that that development used to be called the Pioneer Park Coalition, and they were the business interests who started to clear out downtown and try and set the stage to make it that billionaires playground that you talked about. They've since renamed themselves and are a little more strategic in the way that they advocate, but I think it's important to recognize that efforts like that are all tied into things like the gentrification and what's happening to our downtown. And I would just echo what Taylor said earlier around tax incentives and tax breaks. I think that's the number one thing I would look at at the state level.
Thank you, Erin. Stephen, you'll close this one out for us.
The billionaire handout didn't happen because there was a lack of zoning or a lack of laws. The billionaire handout to Ryan Smith and Smith Entertainment Group happened because politicians who claimed to be liberal bent over backwards, changed the law, and made it happen. As long as we prioritize the needs of billionaires over the needs of our people, as long as politicians are invited to the table that we get to enjoy the crumbs from, this will always be the way that things play out. We want the billionaires out. You've got to get the politicians out that support the billionaires, that feed the billionaires. You feed the billionaires, they come back. They're like seagulls. They bring their friends. That's why we have Kevin O'Leary here today, is because they have come to the trash heap of Utah politics that includes both Republicans and Democrats alike.
They voted all yes, and they put no pushback. They roll over because they're like, well, we want to see it at the table. And I think, what good is that doing us as the working people, as the people of Utah? So also go to Salt Lake City Council and yell at them too, and don't make them forget that.
Great. This has been so much fun. Just thank you all so much for coming. We want to once again thank all of the candidates. None of this would have been possible without them, especially Stephen phoning in from his vacation. Quick round of applause for them.
I wish it was vacation, but
I have a few pieces of housekeeping, and then we'll let you all go. The 71% zine is available at the exit. There are also QR codes if you want the downloadable option. Follow us on Instagram and join our mailing list so you don't miss any other town halls. We will be doing another town hall June 9th from 6:30, starting at 6:30 at the Salt Lake Public Library, the main downtown branch. We're going to be having the 4 Democratic candidates for CD1, hopefully, and the 2 Democratic candidates for the Salt Lake County District Attorney. We'll be covering those 2 races, so we hope to see you there. If you have questions, you can submit them on our website. I also wanted to mention that the Wasatch Assembly from our wonderful Canada is having an event tomorrow night at the Glendale Library at 6 o'clock. The Wasatch Assembly is focused on writing legislation by the community for the community. So if that's the type of thing that you're interested in, go to that, and they're going to teach you everything you need to know about writing legislation from the ground up.
At the municipal level. So if you want to target city and county, it's not state or federal. So just note.
Cool. Okay, finally, we have so many people we need to acknowledge. I'm sorry, we got to do it. Who helped and plan and host this event. There were so many people behind the scenes making this happen. We want to thank my wonderful co-host, Ann, from the Wasatch Assembly.
Thank you.
Yeah. From Green Wave, Utah, we want to thank Kellyanne Ward and Kenneth Charette. I'm sorry, Kenneth. I'm sorry about your last name. From CWA 7765, we want to thank Jessica Stouffer and Ian Ferguson. From Healthcare Workers for Palestine, we want to thank Jill James and Ambreen Khan. From Utah Jews for Palestine, we want to thank Ilyan Raskid and Annie Egelhoff. And from the Women's Caucus of the Utah Democratic Party, we want to thank Angel Weiss. Thank you also to Jake Silo from the Nuanua Collective for key logistical support. And also, we want to thank Colin Williams from the Church of Protest for being our political guru and making sure we had all the things we needed to. And finally, a big round of applause to Fane for providing refreshments. She's constantly doing community events, so please check out her Instagram on KUIS Mom97.
That username.